today's plate of history beans, I'll take a brief look at carpentry in the 19th century. In Hunting Charm, the character of Henry Cactus Branch Walker is a self-taught carpenter. In chapter 19, Cecil Johnson realizes Henry is lying about his relationship with Doreen Tarwater when Henry arrives at Cecil's ranch without his tools. Cecil has never seen Henry go anywhere without his tools. In the 19th century, carpentry was a skill learned in an artisanal way. New carpenters often spent several years learning their trade under a master craftsman to reach journeyman status as builders or furniture craftsmen. Often passed down from father to son, carpenters learn their skills as apprentices. Gathering and handcrafting one's tools was an integral part of the job. In Hunting Charm, Henry mentions that he has created a device like a lathe to turn and shape ornamental bedposts. Historians believe the process of turning posts to create furniture or other ornamental wood pieces originated in Greece during the 13th century. The first such devices required two men to operate. One man turned the limb or log using a rope, while the other employed a chisel or other implement to shape the wood. By the 18th and 19th century, treadle-driven table lathes were common, and it isn't far-fetched to imagine Henry might create such a device for his own use. Illustrations of tools with measures and dimensions were available to anyone, even a former slave. Later in chapter 19, I mention Henry's crosscut saws. A crosscut saw is a basic implement used to cut wood against the grain. They are often used for felling and bucking trees, but can be employed for almost any task, even the production of boards in the hands of a skilled craftsman. It is significant that Henry simply leaves his crosscut saws behind when he leaves to follow Doreen. Carpenters in the 19th century would carry several saws, including saws for ripping wood, all the way down to coping saws with stiffened edges to assure straight cuts. Along with the array of handheld saws, the first circular saws, which were invented in the late 1700s, were commonly used in the 19th century. These appeared not only in mills driven by water or steam engines, but also in smaller ways as table saws with treadle-driven circular blades. The first handheld circular saws, so common nowadays, would not appear until the early part of the 20th century. In addition to saws, 19th century carpenters carried versions of most of what one would expect to find carpenters carrying nowadays: hammers, measuring sticks, tapes, or squares for creating accurate angles and lengths, pencils, chalk, or blades for making chisels, hand-driven drills, miter boxes, and possibly even treadle-driven table saws, drills, routing, and lathing devices. Then, as now, carpentry was or is as much a craft that requires an aptitude for woodworking as it does the right tools. It might be said that in terms of craftsmanship, the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries were a renaissance in terms of the construction of furniture and cabinetry. Some of the most famous woodworkers are still known today by their labels on their works. Names like Chippendales, not the male strippers, Sheraton, Maloof, Nakashima are known nowadays because of their innovations crafting wood. As far as the Old West is concerned, construction may not play a prominent role in that lore, but there are certain images from the Old West that include the framed buildings that weren't widely known before the advent of large-scale lumber milling in the 18th and 19th centuries. The Old West might have been built of sod and adobe, had it not been for advances in the carpentry trade. That's it for today's plate of history beans on carpentry in the Old West. As always, if you like my content, hit that like and subscribe button. Now I have Chapter 19 from Hunting Charm, where the carpenter, Henry Walker, makes the decision to follow Dorene Tarwater on her journey south from Cecil Johnson's home in Indian Territory. Chapter 19, Two Prayers. Cecil watched as Henry Walker approached. Like most residents of their small community, Cecil appreciated Walker's talents as a carpenter. Still, Henry wasn't an easy man to talk to. Cecil stood, released a puff of smoke from his pipe, and extended his left hand out of deference to Henry's malformed right hand. "Morning, Henry. Glad you're here. I was planning to stop by your place. I could use some help over at Miss Helona's." I saw that pile of lumber you come in with. I reckon how you was building a new room. Those boards look mighty fine. Pay is 25 cents for the work on the house. I know it ain't much, but Cynthia will feed you 3 meals a day on top of that. I plan to build right over in that direction at the west end. We've been crowded up in one room too long. I'd be looking to build a pair of beds for the children. Think you would help with something like that? Yes, I could build you whatever you need. I even got me a table I rigged up for turning posts and such. I can make a right pretty bedpost. That would be fine. I didn't buy any framing lumber in Kansas City, just boards for the exterior walls. I figured to fell trees and frame it up with peeled logs. I bought a good many nails. Henry peered over his shoulder at the barn. Cecil had seen Henry with the women a few minutes earlier. Why had he been hovering around the barn? Had Henry noticed the arrival of the white woman? "We'll be having you for breakfast?" Cecil motioned for Henry to sit. "Let's just relax here while Cynthia cooks up the bacon and such. Did you bring your tools? I don't think I have ever seen you without them." I left them at home." Henry's normally bowed head dipped lower. "My shoulder been hurting me something fierce lately. Won't take me more than a minute to put them in your wagon." "We can do that." Now Cecil knew for sure Henry was hiding something. The man never left home without his tools. Cecil realized what was happening a few seconds later when Henry glanced once again toward the shed. "That white woman is a world of trouble," Cecil said. I ain't hardly noticed her." Cynthia passed, returning from whatever she had been discussing with Doreen. Cecil had noticed Cynthia's henny cotton socks earlier. Was his wife planning to go somewhere? Looking at the gentle animal, another thought occurred to Cecil, one he quickly dismissed. Was it possible that Cynthia was arranging for Doreen's departure? Why would Cynthia hide such a plan? Breakfast arrived a few minutes later. Eggs, bacon, and Cynthia's homemade biscuits. The food was good, and there was little conversation. As everyone was finishing up, Cynthia went inside and returned with a plate for Doreen. "Take this on out there to the royalty," she said. Cecil nodded, taking the plate. Then he looked once more at Cotton Socks. Cynthia saw the look but said nothing. Cecil considered asking about the henny, but decided against it. Henry followed Cecil to the barn. As they approached, the mule rancher could see Doreen peering nervously through a crack in the barn door. "Leave me alone," Doreen said. "I need to get some oats for the wagon team. Here's your breakfast. Go on back into your room and we won't bother you none." Cecil spoke the words lightly, hoping to avoid conflict. "Mighty good food this morning," he added. "You may come in, but he has to stay outside." Cecil inched through the door, placing the plate on one of the benches, then filled a bucket with grain. He started to tell Doreen she needn't fear Henry, but didn't want to prolong things. When he stepped back outside, Doreen slammed the door behind him. They continued around the corral to the west pasture, where Cecil began tapping a stick against the oat can, clicking his tongue, calling the mule team. As he did so, he turned once more to Henry. "That woman seems a bit scared of you, Henry." Yeah, is my shoulder, and you are a good-sized man, but you shouldn't take it personal like. That woman is flighty. Folks like her ain't bad exactly, but most of them are bred with notions about black folks. They don't think of us as folks, more like mules or some such. You understand? She be my angel. Henry mumbled, as he often did, and the crippled man's slurred speech made him hard to understand. "Now, what?" Cecil chuckled. "It sounded like you said she was your angel." Henry raised his head. "Yes, sir. That's what I done said. She be my angel." Cecil paused, then said, "She's pretty, but she ain't no angel, Henry. Far from it." I prayed on it. My auntie told me long ago about how folks have an angel. I think that gal there be mine. I know it sounds a mite bit foolish." "Henry, I don't think angels appear like—" "You're right," Henry said. "You're sure enough right. Oh, Henry, he has some funny ideas, sure enough. Just crazy old Henry." "I didn't mean to make it sound like—" "You ain't got to worry none about stupid old Henry." Cactus Branch ducked his head. Was the man angry? It wasn't the first time a conversation with Henry felt odd, but Cecil had never seen Henry angry before. He resumed tapping the can, and a minute or so later a pair of mules approached. The animals knew that by accepting Cecil's grain they faced a day of work. They weren't lazy, but neither were they quick to give up time spent grazing on the newly sprouted grass. Their willingness to come at all, Cecil knew, had more to do with the symbiosis between man and equine than an offering of the oats. Mules, like all domesticated animals, develop affection or dislike for their owners. As Cecil turned, leading the draft animal toward the corral, he wondered if his team, like house cats who view themselves as the masters of a home, saw Cecil as the surrogate in their relationship. Hitching the team, Cecil dared not mention Doreen Tarwater again. The silence between the men extended to the road, and through the morning, exchanges limited to discussion of the repairs needed to fix Miss Helona's wagon. After lunch on the return trip, they stopped at Henry's neatly framed two-room cabin. As Cactus Branch gathered a few things, he looked several times in the direction of Cecil's place. Cecil felt he couldn't avoid the topic of Doreen any longer. "She ain't no good," Cecil said, watching Henry's reaction. "I prayed, and he done Henry's speech dissolved into mumbling, then silence. The early afternoon sun cast a harsh glare, and the chirring of grasshoppers provided oppressive accompaniment to Cactus Branch's response. Cecil had his answer. Clearly, Henry had imbued Doreen with some odd spiritual significance. With a sigh, Cecil set the brake and dismounted. He placed a hand on Henry's shoulder. "You say you prayed for this woman?" Cecil couldn't help but recall Jake's story about ghosts appearing, bearing portents of great harm. There were many stories in the Bible that stretched the imagination. Though it seemed ridiculous, the entire situation with Doreen had Cecil searching for answers. Was it possible that Doreen had appeared to teach him or Henry an important lesson? I done prayed on her many a year, Henry repeated. Cecil felt a chill down his spine, his mind ticking through the events of the last 2 weeks. Henry's obsession with Doreen seemed like more evidence, supporting the notion that some great power was guiding things. "What makes you think this woman is your angel?" he asked. Henry paused, then said, "I seen the white woman there in the wagon when y'all come in 2 days ago." Henry straightened, looking at Cecil now. "I followed y'all. When night come on, I eased down to y'all's barn. Was mighty dark, clouds overhead and such, and she came out to me. She saw me there, seen how I was standing there looking her way, and she called to me. I asked her if she was my angel, and she said she was. She said she was my angel, just like that. Then she told me to come closer, and even closer still, and when I was right up next to her, she took my John Henry in her hand right there, and I done felt the power of the Lord." In other circumstances, Cecil might have laughed, but the way Henry described the event stopped him. Doreen Tarwater had complicated their life enormously. Now, his deeply troubled neighbor had engaged in an unexplainable sexual encounter with Doreen and seemed convinced that Doreen had been sent by God. "Henry, I don't think this gal is—" "Don't doubt me. She is. She must be my angel. Must be my angel." The look of anguish in Henry's eyes spoke of the troubled former slave's inner turmoil. For a moment, Cecil felt such empathy for the troubled man. He wanted to wrap Henry in his arms to soothe his anguish somehow. But when he placed a hand on Henry's shoulder, the man shrugged it off. "I need an angel," he said. "I need one good thing, just one blessing to calm me some. I ain't got no calm place inside." Cecil felt profoundly uneasy now. He wanted to respond in some way, but the situation baffled him. He hoisted himself back onto the buckboard and waited. There had always been a question of Henry's mental well-being. After several seconds, Henry stepped up and settled next to him. Cecil gave a click of his tongue and turned the wagon for home. 15 minutes later, rolling up the slight incline to the house, Cecil saw Cynthia in the garden. His wife had surely seen them coming, but didn't look up. He turned his attention to the corral, hoping his suspicions about Doreen were wrong, but Cotton Socks was gone. Cecil continued to the barn, set the brake, told Henry he might be right back, and went inside. Glancing in Mr. Sugar's room, he saw that Doreen's belongings were also gone. Had Cynthia lied to him? Back outside, he looked in Cynthia's direction. Now she was looking at him, and something, her body language perhaps, told him to wait, to save his questions for later. Cecil, adrift in his emotions, told Henry to begin his measurements for the new room. He went about his normal chores. There was too much work to simply stand around worrying. An hour passed before Henry said he needed a shovel and left for the barn. Cecil watched as Cactus Branch stood uneasily outside the barn for nearly a minute before entering. A few seconds after entering, Henry emerged without the shovel. He walked silently back to where he had been working and spent a few minutes arranging his tools, first placing his ladder and a pair of crosscut saws into a neat pile near the corner of the house. Henry then stored his smaller implements into his toolbox and hoisted the container onto his good shoulder. Then the disfigured giant simply left, walking in the direction of his house. Cecil started to speak, started to ask Henry where he was going. Instead, he just watched and then continued his chores. Henry would be back the next morning, or if he failed to arrive, Cecil would check on him. Something had changed in Cecil's heart regarding Henry. Somehow the man seemed more human now. Cecil had never stopped to consider that Henry might need human companionship. Perhaps he needed to make a greater effort to be a friend. Later that afternoon, with the sun waning and many chores left for tomorrow, Cecil saddled one of the mules and told Cynthia he was going to round up strays. He circled the farmhouse until he came upon a set of hoof prints traveling south. He identified the tracks easily from the slightly deeper depression made by Cotton Sock's right hind leg. He rode back to the house, and as the sun disappeared, he rinsed his face, neck, and arms in the stock tank. Cynthia sat outside with the children, all waiting for his return and dinner. They had their meal by the light of 2 lanterns, a luxury of lamp oil. They ate venison from the smokehouse with potatoes and greens from the garden. The children dashed around, playing with the baby until the infant grew fussy. Cecil sat in his chair smoking as Cynthia washed the plates in a tub near the porch. Eventually, finished with her cleaning, Cynthia herded the little ones indoor. There were a few mild cajolements and a gentle lullaby, only faintly audible through the cabin door. Finally, Cynthia emerged to sit by her husband's side beneath the hackberry. "I seen that white woman left," Cecil said after a time. For a long moment, Cynthia remained silent, then said, "I helped her go." "Should I get on after her?" Cecil asked. He felt confused and, more than anything, worried. Why hadn't Cynthia trusted him with her plan? "No, Cecil, leave her be. Please, baby, just leave that woman be." Cynthia's words were a plea and, in a subtle way, a warning. He started to respond, started to speak of the right thing and God's all-seeing nature, but then he stopped himself. So many confusing events, all of them related to the white woman. He realized Cynthia was probably right. Why should he go after Doreen Tarwater? The woman had come sowing turmoil. If the Lord speaks to a man in his heart through his emotions or instincts, what was God saying except that Cecil should remain there with his family? For Cecil's part, he only wanted his family's safety. As he let go of the notion of following Doreen, he told himself that a colored man in a white man's world can only do so much. Then he said a silent prayer, thanking Jesus he wouldn't have to kill Doreen.